to order, 6:30 p.m. on April 27, 2022. Members present, Jonathan Smith, Jim Attorney, Kevin Fuller, and Brittany Cavett, Alice Gotzi, and Kate Andretto in our company. Will you stand with me, please, and say Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone have an opportunity to look over the minutes from last month?
No objections.
Objections, there being none, found as approved. I'll start, let's see, sorry, I kind of skipped over citizens' concerns. I don't see anybody out there, but I did have something. I know we're going to get into stormwater discussion, which was a citizen concern. Another citizen concern was, let's see here, it was another.
I got the same message as you probably did. It was White Road and Weddington, if I remember correctly.
It's White Road near Wentworth Court.
Wentworth,
There's a couple locations in the ditch out there that have a excessive buildup.
Of debris or vegetation?
Debris, yeah, it's debris.
So the drainage ditch?
Yes.
Is that all in the same?
No, nothing's on the schedule.
So I looked at the map,
not.
and a portion was public and a portion was private. And from where that area was, it looked to me like it was the public portion.
Yeah, I drove by there today, and if the ditch maintenance map that you gave me not long ago is accurate, it looks like that it would be our responsibility, that portion of the ditch. Appears to me. I just drove by there this afternoon.
Because there's portions of, you're talking about south of the bottom there?
Yeah, it'd be on White Road. Yeah,
South of
south.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can look into that. That was all I had for citizens' concerns. Next item on the agenda was the sewer credits tabulation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have a handout there. There were no sewer credits in the month of March, and there were 5 since the last report for outside faucet, a couple of water power backup sump pump, broken water line under a sink, and a water leak in a crawl space. So for the month of April, $1,568, which brings the year-to-date to a total of $3,859.
Well,
Were these, for the backups, what's the threshold to do the dye test again?
500.
500, okay.
Yes.
Couldn't remember, thank you.
Yes.
so these need your approval? This
No.
is just for our
Yes.
information?
If it's 1,000 or more, we bring them to the committee and then ask for a motion at council.
Okay. Nothing unusual on here then, right?
No, these were type of occurrences that have happened elsewhere in previous years.
Any other questions?
I do have a question, if you don't mind. It's somewhat related. With the pool starting to open back up, how many requests have we gotten for access to?
This year,
Yeah.
about a half a dozen, maybe 5.
Okay.
It's happening a little early this year.
How many do we typically get in a year?
I'm just guessing off the top of my head. 15 or
Is this request filled?
12, yes. Yeah. 12 or 15, I would guess, but that's just off the top of my head.
I'm sure we have more than that many pools in the city. I was just curious to see how they fill up. If do we have monitors, if anybody's have the legal taps or ways to find out on that, if people are legally tapping into the fire hydrants?
We require them to come in and purchase a hydrant permit.
Okay.
So then they have to rent the hose to hook up to the hydrant. And we are working on, we have a proposed policy that we're finessing to tighten down on it.
Okay. I'm sure there's probably some illegal taps that are going on onto that.
I think a lot of people don't drain their pools anymore.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, all the people that I know is building pools don't drain their pools.
I think it could cause a whole other type of damage.
But they pour, yeah, there's certain chemicals, a lot of them are also now saltwater.
Okay.
You have a different
I was just curious because it seemed low for the amount of.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I know that has a building pool, nobody drains their pools anymore.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I was just kind of curious because with all the pools, I was wondering what the number was since we made the change at the meeting a couple weeks ago. So, on the pricing.
So is a meter, like if somebody does use a fire hydrant, there's a meter associated with that they rent from?
Currently, we ask them the capacity of the pool, and then we calculate that volume of water, charge them for that with the hydrant permit up front. And, but we're working to tighten down on that and require a meter at the hydrant rather than relying on.
Guesstimate?
Yes.
That would be
So like, is it just for, so I mean, like say, and I'm thinking construction, right, in my mind, I'm thinking construction, like a construction contractor, is that,
Yes.
does that same thing apply to them now, like as residents, I mean, they apply for a permit, or is there a special?
If it's for construction water, that's a $3,000 deposit on the hydrant meter, and then that does go through a meter.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
I knew the answer to that because of my work on Echo Junction.
Oh, okay.
Contractors had a meeting.
Well, I remember we always, like, in the field working, we always had meters, so I didn't know if that applied, didn't sound like it applied to residents. Fourth item we have on the list today is the discussion on stormwater. So,
You want me to start?
Okay.
Very good.
Alice, you used to do all the talking.
Oh, okay, let's just do it back upstairs. Okay, well, let me take, oh boy, if you don't want me to do that. What one is here?
Do have a
I wrote the hard copy.
development maintenance program, clean ditches on a regular basis, so hopefully that won't happen.
Oh, okay, well, but you know, you can just go through it and then we can send some up. Okay.
Stormwater. Well, stormwater is there's some complexity to it, and there's related issues that we wanted to bring in as well. We're thinking we can't just deal with stormwater alone as a single type of project because it relates to, there's capital costs involved, and then that brings in the issue of other wet weather issues, our sanitary sewer overflow issue and the combined sewer overflow reduction that we're working on. And all those together will have an impact on capital costs and have an impact on residential, system, water and sewer rates. Even on the water side, we've got capital costs coming up on the water side. All those type of projects layered together will have an impact on citizen rates. So we want to talk about a little bit about all those issues tonight. The sanitary sewer overflow is at Maple Street and Grassy Creek. There is a pumped overflow into that creek in instances of high water when we have a heavy storm and the flow in that sanitary sewer comes up. We have a target level in the sewer system where we need to act and pump that sewer down, and we pump it as relief into Grassy Creek. That is a sanitary sewer overflow, which is not permitted. We have been working on a solution for that, to eliminate that. Ohio EPA is requiring us to eliminate that to a 10-year frequency storm. And that's in our current permit. We hired Jones & Henry engineers to design the solution for that. That solution was derived out from AECOM, which is a Columbus engineering firm. They did a series of studies for us, and their study that looked at the Maple Street ER SSO gave us a recommendation to put in a portable pump, to purchase a portable pump, locate it at that point in the sewer system, and when the sewer flow rises, we would bring that pump out to the location, connect it into to a quick connect, build a short stub of sewer to an existing larger sewer, and so when the water is high, we bring that pump out there, connect it, and instead of pump into the creek, we would pump into a new sewer that would send that flow toward the treatment plant. When we hired Jones & Henry to design that system, they raised issues about constructability. The issues were the size of this portable pump. They questioned whether that was even commercially available. And then the flow that would be directed to, they questioned whether the receiving sewer would have capacity for that. So they are evaluating what other choices or what other options we have, to alleviate that sanitary sewer overflow. And they're working on that right now. We have let Highway PA know that this is going to take longer and that we have this constructability issue. So we're reaching the point that we'll be able to give more details to Highway PA on that, but we have let them know that we're not going to make the deadline of later this year. So that's an issue, and the AECOM predicted about $1.6 million. We suspect now that that the other solution that will work will be slightly higher cost than that, but we have $1.5 million in the current budget for that. So we can keep you posted on that issue.
Do we know where the majority of that water that goes in, where does that come from? Is that runoff from the roadways? Is that, do we have any idea where that?
I mean, it's a storm sewer, so
Right.
there's no direct stormwater taps into it that we're aware of on the public side.
Or sanitary?
It is sanitary.
Sanitary,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But there, I mean, in that section of the city, we accept flow coming from the Northwest Water and Sewer District, flows through there. There could be some illegal connections, there could be pipes that have cracks, whether from tree roots over time. So surface water could be getting into those pipes, as well as just the flow from upstream, if you will, coming in. Could also have infiltration of water coming out of the district system into our system that ultimately ends up at the wastewater treatment plant. So there's a couple different factors that could be going on at the same time during those really heavy rainstorms. But it's not every storm, it's just certain levels and intensities of storm.
Yeah. So there's some point, there is stormwater entering the drain. I guess that was kind of what I was getting at.
Yes.
And that we don't really know exactly where that, the majority of it the stormwater.
It's scattered.
Scattered.
Yeah. It's not one just single point that we could fix and take care of the problem. It's more scattered.
It's kind of an old system, isn't it? Isn't
Yes.
that part of the problem?
It's clay, for the most part, clay sewers with, prior to the onset of premium joints, it's more old-fashioned joints that don't hold up, they degrade over time, and then water can seep in at every joint.
We did the sewer separation over the last 20 years on this, and so this is still the old system here. I'm pulling up the study here right now. Of course, it takes forever for anything to download.
Yeah.
That is a big file.
It is a pretty big one. So I know that with the cost, I think it was what, alternative 5 is what we were initially looking at, but you're saying that that's probably not going to be doable at this point?
That is what we are being told
Right,
by
yes.
on the constructability end by the engineers,
Okay.
the current engineers, and that was in 2017 dollars.
Yes.
So that 1.5 million is
Well, it's going to be
much
probably
north of that
at least
now.
50% of it more.
The next less costly option was option 1 or alternative 1,
Mhm.
that was, I think, just over 3 million in 2017
No,
dollars.
it's almost 4 million.
Almost 4 million in 2017 dollars, definitely over 4 million today.
And that's putting another parallel relief just alongside that one, correct?
That's a parallel alongside, and I think also at the river.
And would that parallel go where, just get an idea of the cost here as we're having the
No,
conversation?
that one is just a parallel down Grassy Creek with a pump station at Cherry and Grassy Creek.
Okay.
And that's not the one with the portable, right?
No.
Portable was alternative 5, which is not constructible at this time. And then the other options, I think, all
What
had.
plan are you looking at, John?
I'll forward it over to you so you have it.
I'm looking at.
Because this is one, it was from 2017. This is the executive summary, so I'll forward that to you, both of you, just to make sure you have it.
And I
Thank
think
you.
Councilman Fuller, I think we gave you a couple binders upon your arrival.
I don't
So-
think I have that, though.
So,
That one.
oh, unless, okay, maybe I forwarded you the email then, because it was, one was for SSOs and one was for, combined sewer overflows.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find that. If I can get that again, I appreciate it. Because I know some of it was before I was sworn in, and I think went to another email source that may have not have hung on to it.
We can make sure that all committee members have not only this one, the CSO, the lake, the Hazen and Sawyer, and any other documents that might be discussed.
Does,
Is there any benefits in even going for alternative 3, which was the upsized gravity sewer?
4.1 million.
It had the parallel plus the gravity sewer. I know that was an extra 300,000, but I'm curious to know if that might, what the big difference between the two. It's been 5 years since we really talked about the study, so I'm
Right.
going off of memory on some of these.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jones and Henry is doing, is looking, I mean, they have this document,
Mm-hmm.
so they're looking at the alternatives that are here as well as what may have occurred to them based on the data that they have. That could be an option that hadn't been contemplated at the time.
Yes, option, or alternatives 1 and 3 were the next lowest cost.
So as Alice was saying, I mean, there's layers of projects, layers of costs, and, you know, moving, I don't know, Alice, you're probably move on to the CSO section.
Yeah.
So the CSO section, as Councilman Smith alluded to, you know, back in 1992 was when that separation project began, ended in roughly, I think, what, 2017?
Yes.
Was the final piece. And we believe it achieved what our long-term control plan is, which is a plan required by the EPA, because that plan says that we were going to eliminate and or reduce the number of combined sewer overflows. How EPA is not viewing that plain English in that fashion, they are saying we must eliminate all combined sewer overflows. Those have been the discussions we've been having since literally 2017, I believe, Alice,
Mm-hmm.
up through as recently as a month ago. We had a video conference with them. They're still viewing it in that fashion. Alice and the Deputy Utilities Director will be meeting with our environmental attorneys this week, and then scheduling another meeting that pulls in Kate and myself into a meeting, preparing for another, hopefully face-to-face meeting with the Ohio EPA staff regarding their stance on these combined sewer overflows. They had to approve our long-term control plan, which they did back in the 90s or
They approved it in 1997.
So we believe we've complied with that. Is there more work we could do? Quite possibly, based on the 2017 AECOM report on combined sewer overflows. So we're still in this negotiation stance with OEPA, but that plan, in order to reduce combined sewer overflows, also is in the millions of dollars. So we have to factor that in on top of the millions of dollars we know we must spend on the SSO side, because those are illegal. Further complicating things is that now that our combined sewers have been separated, they view every one of our CSOs as an SSO. So we have environmental attorneys who are going to help us convince them that that is not the case, because state and federal law mandates those SSOs be eliminated. So we're in this dance. The dance takes a long time. I feel like we're against the wall waiting for our dance partner to come on board quite often. But it is millions of dollars here, millions of dollars here, as well as then talking about the stormwater master plan that, I think was from what, 2020?
Yes.
2020, for the Grassy Creek. That's another layer of project costs. And so what we're looking to do with the EPA is talk to them about their number one priority is eliminating the Maple Street SSO. Number two priority is going to be eliminating or reducing to the extent we practically can, constructability-wise and financially, the CSO issue, CSO/SSO issue. They don't really care much about stormwater as an individual thing. We care about it because you hear about it, we hear about it. We think it's a good thing to do. So we're trying to get together with them to see if we can do an integrated plan, which I'll have Alice speak to because she understands it way better than I do, but it kind of takes all these components and puts them together and says, here's all the things the city has going on, here's all the costs, here's what that translates into either debt, water rates, project, all the above, cash projects, all the above. Can the city afford that? What can the city afford to do in year 1, in year 2, year 5, 10, and helps us smooth out the projects, smooth out the costs, because every single project takes staff time, not just money.
Right.
It takes a lot of staff time. It takes outside consultants, outside engineers, working closely with staff. So we're moving in that direction, but it's not an overnight fix by any means. And our priority has been the things that we can get notices of violation for, or things that if we don't do, we don't get our NPDES permit renewed, which allows us to operate a wastewater treatment plant. I mean, those are things that we have to safeguard. So we've been focused on those the last couple of years, not as much on the Grassy Creek stormwater issue specifically. But we know that that impacts in some way, shape, or form some of these other projects.
Yeah.
And the costs, and what can our ratepayers bear.
If I can ask as well, I know we have that grant program for the sump pumps. Have we had any takers on that this year?
There's one interested so far,
Yeah.
just one this year.
I think it was 5 last year.
Because I know that would be a huge help, and especially in the older area, if we can get those sump pumps disconnected from any of the sanitary. Is there anything more that we can do to get that message out there about the?
Yes, we can pump out that story again. And our previous PIO pushed that a couple times last year, but we'll get with Marie and push that story out a couple more times.
Is-
I didn't say push out the story, yeah, but, yeah.
So I know in that area too, I know, and this is kind of something that I just thought of, but, you know, I noticed the city had been involved in something with rain barrels, right?
Mhm.
Rainwater barrels. Is there any potential like incentive for those individuals living in that neighborhood to, like, it sounds like we're, like with the similar to the way we operate, like said, sump pump, like, so are they paying for sewer costs in that area?
They pay for sanitary sewer,
Right,
nobody pays separately for stormwater,
okay, so that's, but,
currently. Let me say currently, because there's many communities that establish a stormwater utility. Lucas County, as I was departing from there 10 years ago, was establishing their own stormwater utility, whereby every property within the jurisdiction, in that case all of Lucas County, pays a certain amount of dollars per ERU, which is equivalent residential unit, whatever that may be. You have somebody come in and help figure that out. But all those funds then that are collected, those will go at property tax bills, correct, Bills? I think the stormwater utility.
Either way, they can be on property tax or they can be shown as a separate line item on.
So those dollars are collected, and in Lucas County's case, the county engineer has a separate fund set up, all those dollars flow into there, and then that entity is responsible for whether it's cleaning ditches, putting in storm sewers, helping connect storm sewers, whatever the project is that needs to take place even with stormwater, they have those funds set aside for that. And that's something that's, I think, recommended in this document as something that the city ought to look at in upcoming years.
is that the,
This is the Grassy
Yeah.
Creek.
Sawyer one? That's the one I have, that's
Yeah,
what I was looking at.
So there are opportunities in the future to create something and set something up specifically to address these kinds of issues throughout our system.
And Chairman Fuller, we could look at, there might be a possibility with the rain barrels if we use the logic that in the older sections, someone's sanitary sewer lateral could be leaking, and if they put in a rain barrel, that would reduce the water running off their roof into the area immediately around their house, which would reduce the chance that that water would leak into their sanitary sewer lateral. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe we could justify something like that based on that logic.
I just think along the lines of something like if they're not necessarily using the system, or they're taking the initiative on their own as an individual, like, I feel like they should be rewarded for that, because they're potentially relieving
Yes.
the system in a way, right? Man, you're talking, I don't know how many rain barrels come out of there. There's probably a lot of rainwater, but
Right.
the biggest complaint, I guess, that keeps buzzing around my head, I know we're talking about the pumping is different but I guess in my mind, when I'm referring to the rain barrels, might alleviate some of that is like the standing water in the backyards, standing water in even some of the front yards and things like that. I don't know, maybe something to entertain moving forward.
And what some homeowners don't understand, both in older sections of the city and relatively newer sections of the city, is many times backyards and side yards are designed to hold water during storms. That's their total intended purpose. And there's actually drainage easements throughout. Even some of the newer subdivisions have drainage easements in the backyard swales, I think all through sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And those people still complain about water standing in the yard, but that's actually what's supposed to happen, but they don't understand that. And then the water percolates into the earth over the next several days because they don't have like a detention pond that stormwater flows into that holds it for them. So each house almost acts as their own separate retention area. And a lot of times people don't understand that.
Maybe that's how it works in our backyard. I know the heavy rainstorms, I don't really mow at the very edges.
Right.
Maybe encourage the education of and design and stock designs for rain gardens too.
But I know especially in the older neighborhoods there, I mean, for one, already having, you had a different sewer setup, there were no storm sewers in so many of those neighborhoods, and you also have, you don't have a lot of topsoil there, right? It's just clay, we know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it really is, over time, I feel like it would swell to the back, most of the backyards, and then north to the creek, right? So I guess I'm picturing Grassy Creek,
Mm-hmm.
or south of Grassy Creek.
Right.
But, over the years, the trees grow, the roots heave the ground, and they create low spots.
Sheds,
Yeah.
put in playgrounds.
So,
Chickens, whatever it is.
When I very recently lived on Cherry Street, there was a wooden post fence, and in heavy rain, those posts would sit in standing water for a while, and then it would eventually go away. And in those areas, that was the intent, but as you said, people have redone their landscaping, and so there'll be puddles, and then no puddle, and then a puddle, and across the backyards.
and some neighborhoods, I feel like, or I'd say some houses, they've, they're in a bowl now, right?
Mhm.
Because they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, I don't.
I actually like the idea, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I like the idea of the rain barrels, and I'm wondering if it may not be a bad idea for the city to set aside some funds to actually purchase and provide them and install them.
Yeah.
And we have a waiting list for those. To those who want to sign up for them, it's free of charge to help with that. It's actually a great idea.
I know we've done some rain barrel.
We've done trainings, but we haven't actually done any providing of them, and that might be something to look at this upcoming budget to purchase
In
some.
certain neighborhoods or throughout the whole city?
I would say throughout the whole city, say, maybe, I don't know the cost, but we could figure out a number. I don't know, maybe hundreds,
I kind of like.
first come, first serve.
Take the initiative, like we have a plan, or just send them a you know, I mean, many of those things are really easy to make. I mean, just send them a plan. If they're doing it on their own, I think, you know, that's the most worthy in my mind of a, you know, some sort of credit. I think in my mind, maybe we're not performing the task of making it for them. I mean, if they do it on their own.
So if they want to sign up for it, it's not something we force them to have.
Right.
But we'd have the option available for someone to sign up. And I think the savings would be is that they wouldn't have to use their water to water their plants, and they still get the discount. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize in the city is you get if you have the sprinkler meter, you don't get the discount it's a
70% rate or 100% rate on the sewer.
Yeah, so you get a 70%, you pay 70% of what you really use in the sewer, assuming that you're using some of that water to water your lawn, if you don't have the sprinkler meter. So this is a way that they wouldn't have to use their water, and they still get that discount attached to their bill. So that's assuming that someone's going over their water usage, but I know during the summer months, if people are using it, watering their lawns or watering their gardens and their plants, you can go over that real quick.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we can get really innovative and require everybody from now on, if they're putting in new sidewalks or driveways, only use that permeable asphalt.
Well, you can't have asphalt, you can't put in a new asphalt driveway, right?
No, but if they
Factory.
replaced it,
Yeah.
require them to do it. If you put sidewalks in, switch from concrete, which I hate.
I mean, there's, you know, and I
The
guess.
permeable asphalt, and you guys know how that works, don't you?
Yeah.
Permeable, it just percolates, the water percolates through it, it filters it. Yeah. So,
What happens if someone has an oil leak?
the asphalt filters it.
Okay.
It doesn't, it can't, it just the water, it only allows the water to go.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Or the
can,
sand underneath it, there's a way they build it that they, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we were sidetracked.
yes, Mr. Chairman, I think you spoke of the homeowner grant. We believe it would be appropriate to do another push of this story out to the public to promote the homeowner grant for for them to separate the stormwater from their sanitary lateral, because we, a couple of years ago, upped it to $8,000, an 80% grant. And then push that for a period of time, and then we're right around the corner when we're gonna have to get aggressive on requiring residents to do the separation and get their stormwater out of the sanitary. We know there's areas where we have some leaky public sewers, but we also know that there's quite a few residents still have stormwater going into their sanitary lateral, which is illegal. We've put out this homeowner grant. It's been in existence for maybe, quite a while. And we haven't had just, nobody's been pushing down the door to get to this grant money, even though it is quite generous. So I think it's probably time to push again this year and then start letting people know that, grab it now, because the day is coming very soon where we're going to have to get aggressive and enforce the issue on residents.
Yeah, I'll have to, maybe we can sit down at some point, you can walk me through that process, that way I can help, get this word out. I don't plan on playing a passive role in this, I'll even go out in the neighborhood if I have to get the word out to some of the people. I think it's valuable, if we're looking at trying to get something done sooner, this is a way to engage residents, especially the ones that want something done. If you want to alleviate part of this problem, let's get working on it. We can do that. They can do that on their own. Is there any consideration too? I noticed with some of like the green, I would say like mitigation for some of the hazards, like some of the, I guess like with the soil, any other. I guess I'm just thinking. I can't remember how they worded it in this plan, but
A rain garden.
yes, rain
Yeah,
garden.
there's different variations of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that have anything to do either, or do we have anything in place
Well, we
temporarily for homeowners for that?
Well, we promoted that idea and took public input during public meetings during the development of this report, and there wasn't a lot of interest. The
Okay.
surveys and participation here at the meetings, there wasn't a lot of interest in that, but it's certainly the green way to go is hold the water on the property rather than just letting it run off into a public storm sewer and then where the city has to deal with it. If they can retain some of that water on their own property in a with a green method, that is good for everybody.
Okay.
It's actually.
So I'd like to request, if we could, just through Alice, if I could if we could sit down, I can get, almost like a walkthrough of that grant process. That way, I'm very aware of like how it works, and I'm able to convey that message out to some of the residents.
There is an economic benefit to holding the water back too, because it's less likely to cause flooding downstream or down, so, and damage.
Community-wise,
Yeah.
It might not be a bad idea to look at a grant program for something like that as
Yeah,
well.
rain gardens.
Yeah, that's kind of mentioned, yeah.
So one question I have, I'm looking at Bridget on this one.
Yes, sir.
I know from that grant, not the grant, I'm all over the place, from that Gratiot Creek study talking about the rain gardens, and from sitting through some meetings in the past, there was talk about rain gardens in right-of-ways. If I understand our code, this might be a Kate question as well. We can't have, residents can't do improvements to the right-of-way.
Correct.
Would a rain garden be considered an improvement?
Yes.
Is that something that maybe we should look at changing the code to allow residents to?
Actually, we have a draft, Kate has drafted up I guess the obstructions and right-of-way policy. And we delineated what would be considered an obstruction, what would not be considered an obstruction. You do remember that, yes. We haven't enacted it yet, but that is something we could talk about internally. Depends on that, if that street's curved, not curved, if you're parking on it, no parking. So I mean, those are things we could certainly look at.
Because what I think is, if I recall correctly, there's certain areas of the community where you can't ride your bike on a sidewalk within certain boundaries. If I remember correctly,
I
that's.
think that's just on Louisiana Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the first
that's only
two-
for the Louisiana down here.
So allowing rain gardens in the right of way on streets without curbs may be a option for this. It would help with make it.
It would depend on which way their property drains.
Okay.
Because if it's draining to the backyard, because that's where the backyard swale is, then that's where, essentially the backyard is functioning like a rain garden now. Yeah, so I think it would depend on the topography of the property
Okay.
and how it drains. And Alice would know hydraulics and water, believe it or not.
But I guess my concern would be if you have all the water puddling towards the front or even the back, if there's any damage in the sanitary sewer lines there that we are not aware of,
Well,
it could be
would
seeping
depend,
into it.
because typically in our right of way, in a lot of the street treating areas, there are not necessarily water or sewer, but there are gas lines, other power lines.
Mhm.
So we'd have to understand what else
Gotcha.
you could encounter in that right of way.
Okay.
Because the right of way is not just for our use, it's also for those other public utility uses.
Regardless, it might not be a bad idea to even have a grant program, as you mentioned. I'm looking through and there's multiple counties and water districts within the state of Ohio that have $200, $250 grant programs to help offset the cost of putting those together.
And also, I mean, if you have a stormwater utility, those are also, all those programs that you guys are mentioning, that's also funds that can be used to implement those programs.
Yeah. More programs to help with this, the better.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think that's gonna help expedite the process. We need to get that word out to the residents, gotta get some buy-in, right? I mean, if you wanna change, you want the city to start moving on some of this stuff, if they take the initiative, and we show that we're working on a plan here to try to make this. I know you already are, you guys are already doing that, not saying you're not, but, we really need to make a push to get them engaged, and whether it be, like I said, I'll help make the effort, or it may take some door-to-door stuff, I hate to, but I know everybody's restricted on time, but I think it's a worthy effort to invest in, so. Did you have anything else for us on the stormwater?
Nothing
side? I know
specific,
we
I
can
mean, we're
kinda-
just kind of here to talk about it, just, bring everybody back up to speed, a reminder of what started in 2017, and now we're still working on 2 large pieces, and then we threw this other piece in 2020, but they're all kind of interconnected, especially financially, and we just wanted to make sure that you understood that our priority, because EPA is making it our
Sanitary.
priority, is the sanitary,
Of
or the
course.
CSO, and obviously stormwater, but if there's something we can do project-wise that helps 2 things at once, that's great, that's fantastic. And I think we also have talked with Brian somewhat, that as we are looking to replace streets in this area when we need to, is there an opportunity to put in storm sewers? Since I think, as this was coming out, or it was getting, maybe this was underway, we did add a couple storm sewers to a couple small sections that are contained within this during street projects. And so there is an opportunity there, as other infrastructure has to be replaced, that you could add in this other layer to help with some of these concerns.
And I think, even some of those streets, and you mentioned that, even some of those streets in some of those neighborhoods. I know when I was out there last year, I spent quite a bit of time down there, but I was sitting on one of the residents' porch, and he kind of pointed out the issue he had in his front and backyard. But I said, heck, the street's higher than his front porch, So I don't know if we did get into a scenario where we're replacing roads, if we actually lower that grade and maybe potentially taper it towards the creek. I don't know how much I guess it's just something to consider for future reference, like lowering the grade in that area of the road
There
itself.
are some areas that are low line.
Yeah. Well, thanks for engaging this discussion. I appreciate it. I know the residents will appreciate it, and that gives us something to go back to them with, that show that we're really invested in making this thing work for everybody.
We could talk more about rain gardens.
I think that's going to be fantastic. Yeah, if we can get something together on that end and really get that message out too, and make that kind of part of the whole package of getting that, message out to the residents. If there's something we can come up with that, I think it's a
So maybe it's
fantastic
even
idea.
putting plans out for rain barrels on our website and having PIO promote that.
It's gonna be a good time of year to collect as much rain as you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
My very last comment, our full-time stormwater technician, Warren Rush, conducted that rain barrel workshop last week at 577. And she has a long history of public education programs. She used to work at the Toledo Zoo and was very involved in public education. So she's well suited for that.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I saw that. I'll have to pass on our thank yous to her.
So I'll just ask a quick question, if you don't mind, as we're having the information discussion, with the farmer's market, and whatever the chamber puts on for, whatever you want to call the festival, Harrison Rally Day, whatever you want to call it. Has the city thought about getting booths and doing that stuff?
Actually, the new chamber president has reached out to Marie
Okay.
and has offered the city space. So Marie is working with some of our departments on collecting information.
Because what I'm wondering, if we're doing education programs trying to get people to come to us, why not do them at those events?
And Christine has offered us spot as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it would be great to take an opportunity to take those spots. And maybe one Thursday we do something on the rain barrels, maybe another on rain gardens. We could do another one with the fire department on child safety seats. Just things that people can see as they're there that will give some education to those who are, all the different programs that we offer that a lot of people don't know until they need it, or they look for it and they can see that stuff and know that there's other things that the city's out there trying to help with.
I know in the past, many years ago, I think public service used to always have a booth at the farmer's market. But I think that kind of went away for some reason, it seems like, but this is, Christine has just mentioned it in the last couple of weeks to us, as well as Tim was getting a booth for the chamber and was going to allow chamber members rotating in and out, and he offered space to us.
Right.
at some of the farmers markets as well.
I just think it'd be great for us to do more things to bring the education aspect out for people to see it and to know, oh, there's this something more I should be looking to do, or something that, how many people really know about rain barrels or even think that they could do something like that in the house? There's other municipalities that those are legal to do. If someone came in from California, you can't have that because you can't hoard the water. So,
Why we don't
Right.
live in California.
that's right.
Any other further discussion on stormwater today? All right, move on to the amendment to codified ordinance 1060.06B, Rule number 25.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal of legislation would repeal current section of our water rules, Rule 25. As far as background, our law director has written background information. Where we are is current Ohio law does not permit municipalities to file a tax lien for delinquent utility bills if the property owner was not owning and occupying the property that resulted in the delinquent bill. And that law only pertains to municipalities. I believe we might have let you know about, in early March, about House Bill 422, which was a move to further restrict municipalities' ability to file tax liens, but we haven't heard anything on that legislation recently. Anyway, that's what current law, state law requires, and so this proposed legislation would eliminate what we now allow. We allow a landlord to sign up a tenant and have the bill sent in that tenant's name, and this legislation proposed would eliminate that, and we would then just fall back on only signing water services up with a property owner. And then that property owner, if they're a landlord, they can sub-bill to the tenant however they want to do, but the bill would, or the service agreement would be in the property owner's name, and the bill would go to the property owner. And to make it cleaner as far as complying with current state law. And then our rule, current Rule 7, which is on the second page of the legislative summary, that's current in our code, and that would be then the ruling authority for signing up service, and it just says, just sign up with the property owner.
So I have more of a legal question on that, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, no.
So if the property owner is the one that's gonna have sole capability, and this is the property owner has a right to turn off the water while there's a tenant living in there.
If the bill's not paid to us.
But,
The only way we turn off water is if our bill is delinquent.
but would the property owner turn off the water for a tenant?
Not where we can control it, no. We only turn water off for delinquent and unpaid bills.
No, I understand. I guess what I'm
I
trying
think when Councilman Snoop is
Are
saying.
you asking, can they go into their own home and turn the
to,
water
no,
off?
can they call the,
The
No,
owner
they
can
cannot.
call this.
We're not the third, we're not dealing with negotiations between property owners and tenants.
that's what I wanted
No.
to see, if the property owner, if it's, how do we know that the, let's say that you have a renter and there's a dispute or something between them.
That's between them, they can sue their tenant civilly to get the bill paid.
Okay.
So long as the bill is paid to us, and the bill is not delinquent to us, we're not going to serve as enforcer for debt owed by a lessee to the tenant.
So if we know someone's living in there, we're not gonna shut off the water because the property owner told them.
No,
If the property owner decides not to pay the bill,
That's
then we're gonna
another-
shut the
yeah.
water off.
automatic.
Okay,
But then we're gonna go after that property owner.
I understand.
And one of the things is that in this agreement, if there's a primary residence and then rental residence, we're gonna add, I just realized that we're gonna do this is new news for Alice, by the way. As we're standing here, we're gonna add a requirement that you give us a primary address as well, so that if we have to come after you legally, we know where to serve you.
okay. That's a good idea. And have any landlords have any feedback on?
We have not presented this, but we're not going to make it retroactive. This will be prospective. So landlords who currently have tenants in their homes and those tenants are on the water bills will remain.
Okay.
When a new tenant moves into that property, then the landlord will have to be the one who signs up for water.
I'm sure it's kind of, do we know who these landlords are? Can we send some sort of communication out to them, or?
We could push it out with our PIO, and we can push it out on our public service things. I don't know that we have a way to.
Well, landlord is a data point in our billing software. I don't know how easy it is to query that data point.
I don't know the answer
Okay.
to your question, but we will look into it.
And I'm assuming
I
this
see
is
what you're
equal with commercial as well as residential. This,
Property owners.
So, yeah.
Property
I'm just-
owners have to sign up for water.
okay.
So that would be, yeah.
I just want
Yeah,
to double, because there's a lot of different moving parts with this.
absolutely, 100%. And
Well,
it's
there's
not, and it's,
some commercial buildings that have separate tenant meters for
Mix and
tenants,
match,
right? Yes.
yeah. And if,
Would that conflict in this case with the
No,
owner?
It would still
tenant?
be the
it
property
would still be
owner.
the property owner, and you can have, like, you can have properties that theoretically look to us like one piece of property, but they're shared walls, but they're owned commercially by, like, where Verity is.
that's what I was thinking too.
Those tenants
Oh, yeah.
own their individual properties, even though they
It's
share
like a common
walls.
association.
So they'd still be responsible for their own water bill. So, yes,
No.
that is the intent of this.
Okay.
And also in situations where it's a strip mall of multiple businesses under one property owner, a commercial business, that property owner can put in sub-metering. I mean, they have to bear the expense, but they can put in their own sub-meters to assist, to make it easier to bill the right business for the right water usage.
And with, just to make sure I understand as well, because we're getting a lot of information on this, so.
It doesn't have to be, this can come back in a month.
Okay.
If you're not comfortable with this moving forward today.
The question, so just to make sure I clarify with the changes going on with the state on this, is the state requiring that this is,
The state didn't make any changes.
okay,
We had an incident with a resident in which we put a delinquent bill on property taxes. That resident, because you have to turn in your requests to the county auditor by September, I don't think it's September 1st, but it's like the first Tuesday or the first something in September. It doesn't go on the actual property tax until after January the following year. The house turned over twice. So the person who hadn't paid the bill was too removed from the owner. And we researched and realized that that can't be on the property tax any longer because it's not the owner occupied. That's what triggered this conversation. That doesn't really change the lessee issue specifically because a landlord is probably never going to be the occupier, they're going to be the owner. But as they own property in the city of Perrysburg, it would be much easier to serve and track down with the second method, which is essentially taking them to court to get a lien or to get a judgment entry against them. So this works to us that owner occupiers will be the only, owners will be the only people on the agreements. Owner occupiers, we can put liens on homes. And owners, we should be able to track down more easily for the, taking them to court for judgment entries.
I'm thinking in that example, we were on the hook for the water bill.
Yep. Because we can't find
Right.
the two
We
owners
see, yeah, for
previously.
the two owners prior.
So it sort of in the end removes the city from having to do, I guess, we don't know how much enforcement we'd have to do or to try to accrue those dollars that we didn't get, or we have to go back because somebody didn't pay, right? You're putting responsibility, which it sounds like should be on the property owner, and then
Right.
they enforce their own policy through their tenant, right?
Right, and it takes us out. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't
it
have,
makes sense.
there's no reason that we have to be in the middle between a landlord and their tenant and the water bill.
And not only are we on hook for the water bill, we're on hook for the time for the people to investigate to recover the money.
Yes.
The only problem, like Jonathan is saying, is like, I think if you get into a situation where, say, the landlord doesn't pay the water bill, the tenant's paying the landlord,
Right.
we shut the water off, and now you got somebody that's really not responsible in that chain.
And again, that goes back to the tenant then having to sue the landlord in court
Yeah.
for,
But we're also shutting somebody, I know, that's
No, I know
that's
what
almost
you're
a tough
saying.
one, because you're
It's
shutting
the
someone's
concern
water
is
off that
then
doesn't really need to
you're
be.
shutting the water off. Right. I understand what you're saying. It's not a perfect system. Either way you go, it's not a perfect system. We're just trying to make it a slightly better system.
No, but if it gets to that point, a landlord has, that renter probably has a lot more issues with that landlord than just the water.
And I don't know, I guess, you know, from the legal aspect, like he's mentioning, I guess we kind of follow it now, or maybe it's bumping more in my head now that I'm thinking about it, right? It's just the fact that, like, you get a tenant that says, you just shut my water off, I paid my bill, does the city become liable at that point, right? Just because,
No, because we're only responsible if the bill is not being paid to us. So if they say, if they call us, we can demonstrate to them delinquent bills. We can show them copies of delinquent bills. Provide them with any public records they need for delinquent bills.
maybe, I don't know, I guess, I'm trying to be sympathetic for somebody that it may not be their fault, right? That their landlords, that they may not.
Hopefully we don't have any-
as diligent as they would have been, right?
No, I understand. Your concern is that they pay the landlord the water bill, the landlord
The
gets the
issue
money.
where we see
And then we
lapse, and the landlord's telling us, well, I'm not paying it, we're after the person who signed up, which was their tenant.
Yes, we've had that issue.
So we had tenants who left, didn't pay their bill, and their landlords are saying, well, don't come to me for the bill, my tenant signed up for it, they're
That's-
responsible.
To me, that's why this makes sense. I mean, it cuts that out of it, but, you know,
I
I'm
think the only
thinking
concern that we
versus-
have up here is, what remedies would the city have with a, or lack of a better term, just a slum landlord? What other, because I know if that's an issue, there's gonna be other issues that the city's gonna experience.
That's the
with
point I was getting at. And do we really want that type of landlord in the city anyhow?
it. Yeah, and so I'm curious to know, and this is something that you don't have to get back with us today, but I'd be curious to know, in those situations, how something like that could be handled with a landlord. I know right now, a lot of our zoning code is criminal, and that's something that, I think I've talked about when I was on planning and zoning committee about pushing to turn that to civil, and that's a whole, that would probably take you months to work on that one.
There's two of you pushing for that.
Yeah, okay,
I'm
so,
not sure that I completely agree. People are a lot more afraid of criminal court than they are civil court.
Yeah?
yeah, but I don't want to criminally charge a 80-year-old person because they don't have they're on a fixed income and they're struggling to fix their roof up. That's a whole nother thing, and maybe there's some other options that we can do, work with that,
There's
but,
ways to do split codes.
no.
You don't have to do it all or nothing.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see what we can do on that front for a landlord that just isn't being a good landlord.
Well,
That's
why don't you
not,
pick this a month? Don't
No, then-
send this to city council yet. Let me see if I can give you an answer.
Okay.
If-
You know
Or
what?
if nothing else, for, again, just the thought of having a tenant, like, I would hate for them to have to be displaced because we shut the water off and they've maintained their obligation with the landlord, right? And where do they go? I mean, if they don't shut their water off, they can't do laundry, they can't drink, can't, you know. I
Okay.
would just like to be sympathetic in that, in the
No,
event,
I-
at least an option for
I
that.
completely agree. Give me a month to come up with some creative.
Because it doesn't matter what the landlord
You
does,
know-
it's gonna blame the city.
yeah, and I think there'll be issues long before it gets to that point, in my opinion. Because that's like the ultimate way to screw your tenant over. And you're not gonna do that unless you're already having lots of problems with them in the first place.
It could be an option that a
Second,
landowner does to try to encourage the tenant to leave.
exactly, which if you have a bad tenant, that's not. But also, never mind.
So can a tenant pay, or can anybody pay on somebody's property? Like, could that resident go in and pay on the landlord's property and say, hey.
Evan, if you want, you can pay my water bill this month.
Yeah, right, that's,
You
I
asked me,
was
can you
gonna,
pay my
I was gonna
water bill?
ask.
We'll test it out.
Yes, you can definitely pay my water bill.
So
You
there's
can pay all my
nothing
bills.
stopping from, like, the tenant from coming in and paying, and say, if their water were shut off.
No,
or
there's
got to
nothing
that
stopping them from
point.
coming in and writing a check.
Right,
Okay.
that's an option.
Kevin, I'll volunteer that you can test this out.
Right, except the balance in
Yeah.
your own checking account.
Yeah, I should come pay your water bill. Talk to me when it's shut off, or when it's.
Yes.
So we could, let's table that, until we get some solid answers on that.
That might be a way around the concern, is that the tenant can come in and pay on the bill.
Yeah, as long as the notice is still going on their door to let them know, at least some.
And it would,
Oh, yeah, we would not,
And again, I'm just,
this
going
would
back to.
eliminate any of those notice requirements necessarily have at all.
Okay. And maybe if we just
Well,
solidify some of those.
We would only, we mail a shut-off notice to the person who's named to the billee.
But you also
No,
put
we
something,
eliminated that several years ago.
I thought,
We could bring that back.
yeah.
We'll
We
figure it out.
could do a property, the property address and the owner's primary address.
you know, that's something you could put in this, then you wouldn't know, but.
Well, for anybody who moves into the city as a tenant, is that not required to be reported to the income tax department?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Or occupancy of a new resident or commercial business, they are required to provide notice as a building owner of that to the,
Not that,
I don't know in the case of residential if that's,
I don't think it is.
I thought it was when I first moved in that I was told
we
they had
can
to provide
certainly,
notice.
certainly ask Steve
Okay.
what they do, because they made liaison with, specifically with the building firms and planning and zoning. You know what I mean, as projects are going on.
I remember when I first got, well, not first, but the second apartment I got in the city, they said they had to get a notification to the city.
Who told you that?
The person that I was renting from at the time.
Oh, hmm.
So,
Yeah, I'll ask Steve, I'll email.
I'm just gonna have to pay taxes anyway, so I have. But I'm just curious to see if there's some sort of occupancy requirement or
I've never heard of that before.
maybe it was an old thing, I don't know.
Former building clerk from utilities suggested that was it.
It was an income tax rule.
Okay,
Landlords had to report new tenants to the tax division.
okay. So yeah, to see if that's still going on, and if that's the case, that might be a way that, working in conjunction with the income tax
I've
department.
never heard of that before.
I think it's voluntary more than anything else. But, yeah. Glad I experienced it.
Maybe they just thought you were kind of shady.
Not that, too.
I think that every day.
Have anything for other business?
No.
I just have one question on the tour for the wastewater treatment plant. It's still scheduled for May 4th?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we know, I know Jonathan requested potential secondary date. Do we have anything maybe in the works or thoughts? Because I know I can't make, I got a work trip and I can't make it.
May 4th, it's not a good day.
My original list was Kevin, Mark, Barry, and Corey on the 4th. And Kevin, you
can scratch
can't
me
make
off.
that, yeah. And then I had for the 3rd or the 6th, Jonathan, Jan, and Tim if it was afternoon.
Yeah, I could do, I know I could do the 6th myself.
I don't know if I want to do anything on the 3rd now, after all of our,
It's a long day.
it's going to be a long day. I don't know if I wrote that.
Yeah.
No offense.
I'm thinking the
anyone
6th.
else, But
No, I.
we're going to be here for at least 4 hours that day, so.
Yeah.
The 6th.
The 6th is available. That would work for you,
Yeah.
Jonathan? That work for you still too?
I think so.
Who was it? It's just the three of us?
What, as long as he's after 9:30.
Jonathan, Jan, and Tim.
He said he did a, what is it, an 8th grade project on this. He said he had to go, so.
Yeah.
But if it's the 4th, I would actually pay to see one of our council members dress up as some Star Wars character. So who's playing it?
I said,
Go for it.
Great,
I see Mark dressed up as Obi-Wan.
That is such a good idea.
See?
All right, I'll accept the motion to adjourn, I guess.
Couldn't wait to see.
So moved.
Can I?
7:35.
So are we, is that a go then for, or is that?
Just give me a time and I'll see what I can do to make it there.
Well, yeah. Tim said he wanted the afternoon. I don't know how late the
Yeah.
afternoon is.
Well, Tim, I don't think he said he was gonna go.
Yeah, he's not
Oh,
gonna
he's
make
not
it.
going